The Expanse. No, not the show The Expanse. Star Trek Enterprise Season 2 finale, The Expanse. We're finishing Season 2. I love the first two seasons of Star Trek Enterprise. They're up there amongst the best of Star Trek for me. Love the crew. We're going to talk about this finale using my space system: story, pacing, artistry, characters, and enjoyment. And each category gets a score between 0 and 2. 2 is the best you can get. This is a great episode for me, but there's a big but. It marks the beginning of this sort of decline for me for Enterprise. There's a lot of people, my friends included, some of my personal friends, they're like, oh yeah, see, season 3 and 4, that was like badass. I kind of like 1 and 2. And my good friend who passed away recently, Clobberin Times, the link to his channel is in the description of this video, plus all the videos I've ever posted, or at least in the last few years. And they'll continue to be there. His channel's archived, so you can check out all of his content. He loved the first 2 seasons of Enterprise. So did I. And I didn't really find too many people that preferred the first 2, and more so than the second 2. I know the second 2 become more actiony. This episode is still awesome, but this is where it now starts, right? So I'm going to give the storyline a 1. So 1 point for the storyline. I like the storyline. 1 is a pass. A 5 or 6 is sort of a pass, right? Anything below that, then you're getting into, like Disney TV shows territory. But it's like Earth is attacked by the Xindi, and first they say 1 million, then 3 million. I think it was like 7 million people died. I already don't like that. That's already like, oh gosh, here we go. Now we're going to start this war. And I don't like that in Star Trek. Look, I love Deep Space Nine. I super love it. And there was a war in that as well with the Dominion. And it is a bit but the reason why Deep Space Nine gets your little bit of a pass is that was the first Star Trek show I actually watched fully. Whereas Enterprise, I started with Enterprise week to week, but prior to that, I hadn't watched Star Trek. I just binged Deep Space Nine because I got into it, and then I watched the entire thing, and that was the first show where I completed the full run before moving on to another one. So it's hard to go back and say, well, yeah, maybe that wasn't really Star Trek, right? But I love Deep Space Nine. But this now after I've seen all of Star Trek and I'm watching Enterprise as it's airing now, right? This is the first show that I'm sat down, premieres on, let's watch it. That's when I started, right? And you're just like, I was loving it. And this one's still cool, so I'm still giving it 1 point for the storyline, but it did start the now we're fighting the Xindi. The pacing though is 2 out of 2. It is very fast paced, and there is tension. You kill a bunch of people, they're pissed, they got to figure out what's going on. There's definitely tension. It definitely moves fast. So nothing wrong with the pacing here at all. It's pretty intense. And you're like, okay, we got to figure out what the hell we're going to do. So I like that part of it. Again, this is going to get a high score. The artistry, I'm giving it a 2 out of 2. Everything looks good. Again, this is back then. I'm not comparing today. I'm not comparing, Rogue One or something, or Godzilla to this episode. I'm comparing this episode to itself at the time. And at the time, it looked pretty good. You're like, oh shit, they just destroyed everything. Again, it's a TV series. It doesn't have the biggest budget, right? It's not a movie. Surely some of the Star Trek films look way better, right? Even some of the older Star Trek films look better, like Wrath of Khan. But I was still into it. It looks good. I'm watching it on Blu-ray 4K TV. Now it's not on 4K, but it's a big screen TV, 65-inch. So it's surround sound. It looks good. Everything's looking good. It's awesome. For the characters, I got to give it a 2 out of 2. It's my Star Trek crew. I love the Enterprise crew. They're awesome. Yeah, I mean, everyone's on point here trying to figure out, what are we going to do? What's the next steps, right? Overall, this is a good finale to season 2 because you're like, oh man, what I would have liked, let me get to the enjoyment factor. I'm giving the enjoyment factor 1.5. So I'm giving it a 1.5 for enjoyment factor, which gives me a score of 8.5 out of 10 for this one, 8.5. This is a good finale if you're like, oh, all this stuff happens and we got to go find the Xindi. What I would have liked it to have concluded, if season 3, episode 1 concludes this, then we'd be good. The problem is that it doesn't, but I don't know that yet, even though I've seen all these already. Theoretically, you wouldn't know. You're like, oh, I got to watch season 3 now. So they did end it on a good, on a banger, But season 3, this is where I start to lose a little bit of interest in this series. I'm still obviously going to review it all, and I'm going to be as objective as I can be. But this is a great ending for a season 2 cliffhanger, but it's the beginning of the decline for me in this one. Whereas I didn't really see any declines in the original series. I didn't really see any declines in Next Gen. Really, it got better. Deep Space Nine, I don't see a decline, but I've seen it so many times that like I just love all of it. So Voyager, I also love all of it. I know it gets really heavy with Borg and the Doctor and Seven, and you start to lose like Tuvok and Paris and Kim and Chakotay get a little bit lost, and it becomes more like, it becomes more like classic Star Trek where you just have the Doctor, the science officer, and the captain. It becomes like original series where you just got Janeway, Seven, and the Doctor, and they seem to be the main people. But anyway, that's that. If you like my Spacism, please like the video, consider subscribing, check out the playlist for Star Trek. That's it. Thanks for watching. Until next time.